He believed that the papal authority was superior to that of secular rulers, and argued, I mean, that he was the ruler, right? And that he's going to have control over the whole world. Correct me if I'm wrong, baby. You know, I think that was his whole thing.
Right. The whole
And
premise of Unum Sanctum was that they were going to express that they do have authority over every living soul on the planet, no matter
on the
whether you
planet.
call yourself this or whatever. Ultimately, they are the highest and supreme authority over it all, and everybody must succumb to that post. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
what the papal bull Unum Sanctum, the decree, was actually
Mm-hmm.
about. And they've been enacting and following the tenets of that this entire time. And everybody's life is still engulfed underneath those tenets right now as we speak.
Mm-hmm. And so I came to realize immediately,
What's up, Daniel?
I was annoyed, to be honest with you. It
I'm
was like
listening to
learning
my
that
doctor. Listening to my
Santa Claus
teacher.
didn't exist at the age of 7. I don't know why so many things happen at the age of 7, but that's a different story. And I realized that I was just all these different things that we go through and we discuss numerous times on panels, right? I don't want to go back to all the stuff that we learned. We've been there, we've done that, we've done the research, we talked about this over and over again. So now I go into the Vatican and I have all these things that I'm armed with, and I am really seeing things that I didn't think I would be able to see any other time. And I was so thankful for even prepping myself. Not like I didn't even realize I was prepping myself for this, because when I walked in, I immediately started seeing how demonic the Catholic religion is. And again, I don't mean to offend anyone who's Catholic. My mother's Catholic. I was born a Catholic. I was actually born, they indoctrinated into it. We start at a very young age. We usually get baptized when you're like 3 months or something like that. So you're putting the seal of Catholicism on you the minute you're born, pretty much. And I started realizing, even way before, I was mentioning this to Doc this morning when we were having a conversation, and I said, I started seeing the red flags not only as a child with the whole praying to Hail Mary, but I was seeing the flags when I started seeing this Netflix series that spoke of the truth of the Borgias, and how, when you were confessing, you would have to pay for your sins. You actually have to pay some type of currency for each sin. Like, for instance, adultery, you're going to pay, let's just say in modern day, $5 for adultery, $20 if you stole, that type of thing. That's how they were running it back then. And this is all true. We're speaking truth here. And how there was actually, sex among each other and the popes and everything that would go on in the Vatican. And this is way before me coming on this app. This is way before me even looking into stuff and paying attention, right? Because we start reclaiming the reign of our own minds. That's it right there. Yeah, you become a certain age where you say to yourself, wait, this doesn't make sense. I will connect the dots. So I started to do so. And as I am on this app, we start hearing more, we start researching. Now, let me just say this. Just because somebody tells me something doesn't mean I run with it. I actually read it over. I'll start researching the research, just because that's that cognitive dissonance. I'm like, wait a minute, I know you're telling me this, but this can't be true. And I went through all that. I really did. I would say this can't, even though I knew there was some stuff that didn't make any sense in the Catholic religion, I still kind of like didn't want to believe it. But then again, there it goes. I start reading over the Unum Sanctum. I start reading about what the children were going through, the tunnels inside that the Vatican, underneath the Vatican. So I walk into the Vatican. I go to the St. Peter's Basilica. I go to the square. I'm going to the
Brian, how you doing?
ruins,
How you doing? I'm just listening
and I
to
gotta
my
tell you
teacher.
guys, I could say the visions that I had visions. I was there clearly seeing it. I was feeling the goosebumps in my head, the back of my neck, the stomach being sick. It always hits me in my stomach when I know something's not right or when there's confirmation. And I'll give you a clear example. I was inside. I have some of these videos on my IG, and the lights were bothering me so bad. I had to go in there and wear shades. I was wearing some dark shades because I was getting an immediate headache that it just wouldn't stop. I had to touch my nose to make sure I wasn't getting a nosebleed. This is not a joke. I'm being real. And I started looking at the statues while my family's pointing out how beautiful the sculptures are. I wasn't seeing beauty. I was seeing the children that were abused. And I was telling Doc that I was standing and I was feeling like really weird, like sick, like heat, cold, hot, and I'm like, I don't got no damn flashes. You know what I mean? I'm not, I'm not going through it. So I look down, and when I look down, I see, it almost looks like when you're in the street, there's like a pothole, but it was a beautiful gold circle with holes that you could see under. And I was standing over the tunnels. Okay, there was some tunnels down there, right in the cathedral. And there was several of those gold things, and they had like these 7-point flowers around it. And I started putting my phone in there. Of course, I was being looked at like, what are you doing? And I could see that it was underground. Now, bear in mind, Doc, I was telling you that prior to me walking into the cathedral, I had just went through a whole tour on the outskirts of it. And they were talking, the tour guide did mention, he was funny. He was mentioning about the necropolis, but he didn't use that word. He was just saying there's, that there appears to be these stories that a lot of people believe that there have been buried a lot of bones down underneath the Vatican. But, I'm supposed to say that, that's not really, and I couldn't really understand what he was saying a little bit because his accent was very strong, and it kind of, but I was able to discern what I already had prepped myself to research and learn about, is that and quote unquote pagans, because during this time now we're talking about the Roman Empire. Anyone who didn't believe in what they believed, they were considered pagans. I don't try not to use that word, because right now, if I choose to be someone who doesn't believe in Jesus or doesn't believe in anything, and I believe in the universe and I believe in certain things, then I will be considered a pagan as well. So I'm not shouting anyone out. I'm just saying, this is for the sake of argument. This is what they called pagans back then, right? Anyone who believed in their own self was considered a pagan. Or if you believed in more than one deity, you were considered a pagan. All this stuff. So that is what I was able to, I don't know how to say it, and I try not to use visions and anything supernatural type things, because I don't want to go there with that right now. I really want to take you to what I considered confirmation of what I know now. I know that the Vatican is one of the most, how do I say this without being so rude? it Everything I saw there points to demonic. See, they always portray as if they're having an attack on the church. The church is being attacked. We have these movies in Hollywood, right, of exorcisms and I don't know, all these movies where the cross is like they're fighting these entities. But in reality, when I walked in there, it seemed like they are the entity. Does that make any sense? That's what I saw. That's what I felt. And I go with that. And I stand 10 toes down on it. I saw it with my own eyes. What do I mean? You see these beautiful Michelangelo, all these beautiful art all over the church. And then you see these reptile looking, it almost looks like a Diablo. It almost looks like a demon, like a gargoyle. Everything's all around there, and it's underneath. It's almost like it lays by it, the pictures or the statue, and it sits right next to it. And I told Doc, it reminded me of when I take a picture, and I'm looking really nice, and I place my dog, my beautiful Shih Tzu, next to me, and she's part of the family. That's what I. That's the depiction of what I see in the church. That's what I saw. That's what I received. Not to mention the crosses that you see near, they all look like they're somehow upside down. So it did seem very, very hypocritical, the hypocrisy of it all. Yeah, I would say, yeah, it was beautiful artwork. But what I felt in my soul inside there, it wasn't, I could actually smell the blood. How about that? Doc, you were saying something?
No, I'm loving the expressions that you're having as far as letting the people, the family know your real life experience, and then we can connect it to a lot of the things that are historically known or the mysteries of things, and the fact that that has been the source of a lot of heinous acts, and it also sits on one of the ley lines, or the energy centers, and that plays a role. Plus, it's considered to be a necropolis, and it has dealt with, that area has dealt with necromancy, and it's a lot of things going on right in that space, as well as a lot of the stories that some of the escaped victims of the child sex trafficking rings that have gone on at the Vatican, through the Vatican, underneath the Vatican. Some expose some of the things that they've experienced as far as creature-like situations. So there's a lot of things that could be delved into. Yeah, I definitely want to allow you to continue to, tap into your experience and share where you're vibing at with the people. So.
Right. I just think that it was almost like again, I had came across, okay, I had did a recording of Unum Sanctum, sort of like a spoken words of it. So I was looking for an image to put on it when I was publishing it on this app, with the music behind the lyrics as I'm, reciting. And when I was reciting, I came across information about the Vatican. So I'm one of those that, when you're shopping for something online and you see something else and you're like, oh, you get distracted, you start reading it. So I was reading it and I made notes before. I'm talking about weeks, like almost, I would have when did I, 2 months before 2 or 3 months before I even went to Europe, I had taken a lot of notes. These are the notes that I took in and this is what I actually felt, guys, when I went there. I'm not kidding. Beneath the Vatican, St. Peter's Basilica, lies 2,000 years of bones dating back to the founding of the Roman Empire. In the darkness underground, the altar, the oldest burial grounds, dates back to the 1st century AD and was used for quote unquote pagans. Above that burial ground is yet another level of burials that dates back to the 5th century, yet interesting enough, this burial ground is mixed with pagans and Christians. A mausoleum of a time when the pagans from Europe were converting into Catholicism. These two levels alone account for roughly 90% of the time when the Roman Empire was in power from 27 BC to 476 AD. And somehow I went on to put some, these are my notes, guys. I talk about a bishop and how he was killed because there was corruption in the Vatican. And then I talk about how the Vatican was its own country. It became its own country in 1929. Something called the Lateral Theory. The Lateral Treaty with Pope Pius XI and Mr. What's his name? Mussolini, right? They came to that. So I already knew, as disgusting it felt in my stomach, how corrupt it was. And I was this girl that I always walked around with a cross, and I was loyal to that. I'm speaking of something that bothers me. I speak of always wearing my little cross and really being loyal to what I believed, what Catholicism was. And I have independently, voluntarily removed my own veil so I can see what the Vatican is really about. Okay? And how we're going to connect the dots is that, first of all, I did take a picture of something else that I was talking about that was crazy to me, because now I'm looking at, I'm in the center of St. Peter's Square, and I see this huge monument that looks like the Pentagon, but it's called an obelisk. And that was taken from Egypt in like 1,000 years ago. And it has a whole bunch of Egyptian scriptures on it. But I remember here where I had wrote somewhere that I had saw this video Doc had sent me a while back, not a while back, but you sent it to me the other, where it states that they used to crucify Christians on the base of that. And that's actually still there. It was removed from somewhere else because in the Middle Ages, it still stood there in the 1500s. They still had it. They had this monument there that if you're in the Vatican, right, the home of Catholicism, and Catholics believe in Christ, right? They celebrate Christmas, right? That's what this is about in their world, right? I had this awful feeling of why would you have a monument like that? First of all, why would you steal that from Egypt? Let's start with that. But then you put it in the center, and then you crucify people who believed in Christ, Christians, in the base of it where the blood was splattered constantly, and you still keep it there. Because I do know now that Christ was not really in the same agenda of what the Catholics are doing. So I don't want to get into that too much right now because that's a lot to unpack. But I want to speak to that feeling when I walked in and I saw all this. Now you just imagine, again, I started this panel by discussing how I was this little girl born into Catholicism. Most people know that, especially in Puerto Rico, it's a very Catholic island. Everything is Saint this, Saint that. So San Juan, Saint John, Saint everything. We all know what happened with Spain. So you really, that's your bread and butter for the day. And when you walk in there, you know what I
What's
felt?
going on,
I felt
Chef?
like
Somebody said I
putting
was smart. Thought I was
Jesus
smart
Christ,
last night.
right? He was upset that they were
My
gambling in
teacher
this whole
came on
thing.
today,
I really felt like putting a match on this
so we
place and
gonna
just
let it
running it
ride.
because it just seemed like a diabolical place to be in. And it's just gives you distractions with beautiful artwork. It distracts anyone, the tourist, anyone with this. But if you're not lifting your veil, you're not going to be able to see what I saw. It's clear that they have all these statues of children, little babies, like these statues, and they look like angels. I don't know. I know you see them sometimes. They look like they're naked and they're just there. But what I was seeing was that there was always like a little demon on the side. There's also a lot of portraits of people trying to get to the child, and there's a sword. There's a lot of swords, by the way. The Unum Sanctum talks about the two swords. Doc, I want to talk about that in a few. Just remind me. I wasn't really too
And I'm
sure.
also
I might be
cooking,
doing
helping my
it
daughter
crazy because
cook. So I'm gonna be in and out. That's why the camera ain't on, family.
with a lot of metaphors,
One
and
love, Chef.
it's not really clear.
Love you,
I know
brother.
they use a lot of metaphors and analogies, but you see a lot of swords. And when you see swords, what does that mean to you? There's some type of, you're fighting for something. So if I didn't have my veil lifted, I would have believed that the swords is that they're protecting the children. But my veil is lifted. You know what I see? I see them killing the children. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you're all right. I mean, you're explaining the different aspects and angles which is what you see replicated in society. You see some people seeing the same image as this, some people seeing it differently, and those that are actually doing the research, they see it differently than everyone else because they're actually putting in the work and are willing
Right.
to open themselves up to be able to view things differently. One of the biggest things you hear people say oftentimes is that they're not going to change, or don't let nobody change you, not realizing or recognizing that change is the only thing that's constant. We're always changing, and that change is supposed to be representative of growth. And so when we're not willing to grow, then we're not going to be able to see certain things. It'll only show up as the way it was indoctrinated or agendized to be presented. And so when you're able to have your own mindset and look at things differently, you're going to see it differently. And that's the process of removing the veil and reclaiming the reins of your own mind. So, and then on a metaphorical aspect, sword simply refers to sacred words and the power of words, so you got the S word. And so that's why they say that the tongue is the two-edged sword, because it cuts to and fro. You could create a beautiful life, or you could create destructive energy because you're using sound through frequency and vibration. And so there's a lot of different angles to look at it. But I'm definitely listening to you. Misha's here, and
Hey,
so
Misha, nice to see you. I hear you. I'm glad she's there. Say hello to Misha for me. So going back to the research that I was actually conducting, there was something that I came across as well in terms of the Vatican. So we know that the Pope was always the ruler, quote unquote, with the Unum Sanctum of 1302, basically saying that he was, the church, the Catholic Church was in control. He was the power of the whole world, right? World power. But something happened in 1871, right? And I want to be specific. May 13th of 1871, the government of Italy felt they had a Pope problem. It was called a Pope problem, right? And they created a law because they were saying that for 60 years, they didn't want the Pope to leave the Vatican City, right? The Italian government hated that the Pope has so much power and influence over the people. So they were creating this law, the law that was aimed at forcing the Pope to be an ordinary subject of Italy and not sovereign, right? They promised to treat the Pope with similar honors you would give to a king, but he was to be under the strict Italian law. And in response to that, there were like 5 popes that locked themselves inside the palace of the Vatican and wouldn't leave, okay? So now Pope Pius IX, he was furious. He's one of those that he was excommunicated by the king of Italy, Italy, or the president of whoever. Right there, I'm a little confused, but I know he secretly sentenced him of a lifetime of hell, and it ended with having the Pope, the 11th Pius the 11th, and this guy decided to make a new deal with Benito Mussolini. And they decided on February 11th of 1929 to make the Vatican City its own country. Now, Mussolini and the Pope of 11th created a law called the Treaty Lateral. And the Lateran Treaty was signed by Pope Pius XI and Mussolini. Now, I started quickly saying, well, what happened in 1929? Wasn't there like a crash? Wasn't there a lot of stuff going on in the United States? And then I started going back to 1871. And this is where I need your help, Doc. Because I was saying to myself, 1871 also talks about the Treaty of Washington. And I wanted to know if the District of Columbia, the Organic Act of 1871, created a single new district corporation governing the entire federal territory called the District of Columbia, right? So I was trying to connect the Act of 1871. That's
and this
right.
is how the 3 nation states that are running the world today were put in place and implemented.
Right.
And
Because in 1913, that's when the Federal Reserve System, right, came through. And in 1929, the United States had that great crash. The whole great crash went down. Remember the whole Wall Street, there was the whole stuff happened. But what happened in
well,
1929 to the Vatican? The Vatican became its own country. So people
right, and
think that
see,
the
all of this
Vatican
is
is only about
simultaneously.
religion. Right, there you go. That's what I wanted to, I'm gonna mute, and I want you to kind of like help me out with that, because you know how I get with words. So I'm gonna mute, and I would love for you to address that.
Well, those dates and those times is also simultaneously in alignment with something that Noble Drew Ali did, and something that played a role in that as well, because this was right after the Pan American Conference, where the entire landmass in its states called the Americas, that's North, Central, South America, and all of the adjoining islands, met in Havana, Cuba, and where a unrebuttable affidavit style claim was placed on the abandoned territories of the Moors, and it was placed in a what's called an express trust. And so it was basically a reclaiming of the land. Now, this took all of the jurisdiction that was fraudulently claimed by the corporate constructs, it and the thing that was created in 1871, the new government in the 10 square miles, which basically state jurisdiction over the rest of the so-called United States. And then when he made that move, it basically put everything back into its proper jurisdiction. And that meant that they were bankrupt, that bankrupt the entire fraudulent system. And so not long after that, this is what caused the bank runs, because because the whole thing about banks is that banks basically say that they're going to hold the actual assets, use the actual assets, give you these coupons. And we know these coupons today as Federal Reserve notes. They're promissory notes that are given to the people to say that you can use this because it's more convenient. You can move, you can transact with it a lot easier, yet the actual assets are held in the bank. So that's how banks came into power and they established power. And so this is what was going on. So now the banks are bankrupt. The entire social construct is bankrupt, and people were making bank runs because of the transference of power, of authority over the lands. And so this created a domino effect of a lot of things, which culminated in 1933, them signing that act into legislation, and therefore all of the Section 2KB accounts got activated, the straw man, the birth certificates, all of these things that say that that the corporation is bankrupt, so the corporation must borrow money from the Federal Reserve Bank and use the people, everybody that's classified as a citizen, as collateral. And so that's what's been going on since that time. So right now, the people are the actual creditors. They're actually the source that all of the finances are stemmed from, which is why they're supposed to be taken care of. They're not supposed to be spending all of their life just paying bills and doing all these things. But to be coerced into doing so is a type of slavery or indentured servitude or chattel property. And this is what's been going on. And that's a little deviation from the core, but all of these things are tied together because they all lead toward unum sanctum, because the goal ultimately is to control the lives of every living soul on the planet, and they all become dependent. And so that's what the fraudulent government structures of the world today are doing. All of the people are dependent on them, and they have no standing or no idea that a life outside of that even exists, or how to tap into their autonomy and as a collective establish their sovereignty. So the opposite of that is dependency and citizenry. And that's what we have today. So they are all connected, and it does all tie together.
Yeah, and I would ask, so going back to 1929, if let's just say Mussolini was not in office, right? And it was someone else who didn't even bother making the Vatican its own country, what would that look like if that didn't happen? Because the Vatican has its own bank, has its own stuff. And I do believe in 1980 something, I think it was 1982 or 86, there was there was the bank. They were in corruption. The bank in the Vatican bank
Yes,
was
sir.
full of corrupt
Yes, sir. This live
system.
right now, sir.
You know, there was a pope who was in office for only 33 days. He was in office back then, and he was about to address that corruption. And the person behind, the director, whoever was in charge of the Vatican bank, he killed himself, or they killed him. That's all theories here, but we all know what happens. He was killed, and someone else took his place. No one ever speaks to it. We know that they clean their own laundry. But I always wonder what would have happened, and I hate to do that, but I ask you, Doc, I mean, just going back to 1929, what if the Vatican didn't become his own country? Do you think that Unum Sanctum may have been taken out, or just
well, no, because that's just one head. That's just one factor. Because people oftentimes look at it as like how it affects them and their so-called country or their so-called state. But we have to remember that Unum Sanctum is about world control, right? So there are multiple things that are in place. Like everything that people hear about the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is all connected. Everything people hear about the Bilderberg groups, they're all connected. The Council on 300, all of these different things are connected around the world. All of these so-called leaders in these corporate government seats are all working for the same agenda. And that agenda is to keep the people from never realizing that the people actually have the power. That if the people were not compliant and in a state of dependency, this is worldwide. All the countries around the world are being run according to these same structures. And they're headed by this three-headed oligarchy that is controlling the world. You got the Bank of London, or the City of London, right? You got Vatican City, and then you got the District of Columbia, and
so the District of Columbia is pretty much the military. And is it safe to say, or is it the Vatican is the religious thing, and then the London is the money? So I want to just kind of like give it like a,
well, they all play a particular role in manufacturing this construct for all of society to fit in and underneath. Now, the Washington, D.C. is representative of the military might, or that which will be for forcing things or enforcing things or putting the threat and the fear in the TDC, the threat, duress, and coercion. And then you got London, that's the financial capital. That's to monitor, engage all of these things that people call money. The people have never had money, because money in most governments and most constitutions has only been gold and silver. Most people have been utilizing Federal Reserve notes under the optional notion that it is money. So you've never worked for money your entire life. You're playing a real life game of Monopoly. And then the Vatican City is the control of the religious might. And why religion? Because religion is that relationship or that realignment that connects you to a higher source of things that cannot be readily seen or known with the eyes. So you have to have a level of belief, which will manifest into faith, which then becomes fruition. And so by controlling those three aspects of life, most people are not in any mindset of even thinking of how can I function outside of the dictates and control of those three mechanisms, right? One keeps you, and then we look at the three code, the threat, duress, and coercion, right? Like you're kept under threat, with the military might. You feel like if I do this, that this is going to have their consequences to this. And then you're in states of duress, by always having to stress money, pay bills, fines, and then you're under absolute coercion with the religious and the spiritual manipulations and deceptions, and having people exert their energy in all these different areas. And wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. So now you're energizing the very things that are actually designed to work against you. So it all requires the energy of the people, which is why power is the people has to be manifested and realized, so that people can reclaim their power and start manifesting it into a reality that actually benefits them. So
yeah, well, thank you for that. I know you have family over, so I might want to just close this out, I guess, because I know that
no, you don't have to close it out. I mean, I'm here for it, because I'm unless that's all you wanted to share, because I want to keep diving into it with you. And
I wanted to go back to something then. Okay, so let me ask you something. So I just had this thought right here. It was there in the middle. Oh my God. You were saying something about okay, so I don't know why I'm under this. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. I thought that the Pope was the one that gave power to these monarchs. Am I right when I say that, or or is this true? I don't even want to say right or wrong. Is this true?
One moment, Lucky. I'm finna tell Misha's about to leave, and I'll be right back.
I want to say hi to Misha. That's how I said hello. Oh my God, give her a hug for me. Yeah.
Hi,
Hi, Misha. How are you, my love?
I am great. How are you?
I am wonderful. I'm having a little. You're on the air right now. Say hello, everyone. Say
Oh,
hello to Misha.
that's time to tell me. That's how it's civilized.
I will be seeing you very soon. I will be down there very soon. So I'll see you soon. Okay, my love. Giving you a
Sounds
hug.
good. Sounds
Yes.
good. Love you.
Love you. All right, hon. So I'm gonna play these messages, my love, while you say goodbye to Misha. I want to say hello to everyone. I want to say Drew Loop or Dr. U Loop, but I'll say Drew Loop because I think that's the name. I think you corrected me before. Hello to you. Hello. Hello, Salty Coffee. Divine Idea, my love. I love what you're wearing, Divine. Mr. Rice, Mr. Cause you don't know. Nice to see you. And Mr. Cryptos. All right. I'm gonna play this message right here from Mr. Chris, cause you don't know. How are you?
Grand Rising, Doc Bay. Man, I can't wait to hear you all the time. Man, I love you, man. Thank you for everything you've done. And you just changed my life, bro. You changed my life, man. And I really appreciate everything you've done for me. Um, Miss Isabella, Dr. Poetry, thank you for your contribution. Um, it's amazing. It's amazing. You know, it seemed like this happened on purpose, not on accident. Just speaking, showing love.
Right back at you, Mr. Cuz you don't know. I learned a lot from my beloved as well. I always say that, I'm just learning. I'm like everyone else on this app. Hopefully we are all here to learn from each other and with the goal to uplift each other and be respectful, most of all. Um, I have no desire to pretend to act like I know everything. I don't. This is why I share this with experience with you because I was blind. I was blind. And when you already activate that within you to want to know and you have the willingness to keep learning, even if it hurts, it's a tough pill to swallow. And I talk about all the things like knowing my role as a policy enforcer, knowing my role as someone who's come to the information that I'm coming into and how we
She's a
disseminate it and
police
how we
lady,
share it.
policy
Because the
enforcer.
goal is to be free,
That's what she
right?
means when she
We
says
don't want to
policy
be
enforcer.
tied to
Police.
anything. We don't want to be chained up. And I say this physically, mentally, emotionally.
Layman's
And
terms,
we
we
need to
call
be
them
free so
slave
that we can
catchers.
have
Only way you become a slave is when you break a rule or a policy.
so yeah, I
Then you're at the
appreciate that.
mercy of the court.
Here we
You're
go.
their slave, policy enforcer.
Yeah. Power up. Dr. Bay in the building. And Dr. Poetry. Power up.
Power up. All right.
Power up.
All
I want
right.
to see you, bro. Cryptos, my brother.
Yeah.
Bro, Chris, because you don't know. I want to see you.
Babe, and I also wanted to mention something about the doctrine of discovery. I want to kind of put it in my own words, kind of. I do believe that that was also some doctrine that was created to give power to those who were in the type of prince, kings, and all those that they could, whatever land they found, that they can make it theirs, and the indigenous lands that belong to what they call the indigenous, the aboriginals, that what they can claim it as their own. Yet in 2023 of this year, in April, there was a statement from the Vatican basically saying that that's no longer the deal. They were saying something like that. So I
Well,
wanted to ask you, why is this happening? Is it the Pope has a new vision, the new Pope, or is it that it's just pretending? Are we just distracting us? Like, where is this coming from?
well, I never try to speak in any absolutes, but I will say that that the whole apology or rescission of the doctrine of discovery, it appears on the surface to definitely be an apology for even enacting that. And when you think about it, to try to keep it in simplified terms, when you think about that, somebody has says that anything as we go around crusading and challenging and destroying and destructing anybody is get down or lay down. And anything we discover, anything we label or classify as a discovery, automatically comes up under our jurisdiction, our authority, our rule, our dictates. And when you have these type of mindsets that are functioning through all of these so-called countries, I mean, this is the mindset that was functioning through Spain, through Portugal, through England, through Britain. All these different things are functioning under this ideology, this this right to discovery, to right to self-destiny, to create a destiny at the demise of whom and whatever. Yet it's always done under under a manner, a documented manner that does not make it appear to be just all out vicious and unrighteous as it is. And so the goal in most of it is to get the people, the indigenous people of the land, to disconnect themselves from their inheritance, because as more and more children are born, that inheritance continues on. So if you can get the people to disconnect from their inheritance and they leave it in a state of abandonment, then that's what creates the premise for these fraudulent entities to step in and just stake claim on that which has been abandoned and then distribute it at profit at their discretion. So that's what's happening. That's what's happening with this land. That's what's happening right now. That's what we're all going through. That's why we're always talking about status correction, so that you can reposition yourself in alignment with your inheritance, your natural inheritance of being an Aboriginal or an indigenous descendant of the Americas, of the other land masses, the other continent. It basically is reconnecting you to the lands. So, but if you can keep the people not paying attention to that or not thinking that that's important and putting all their energy into multiple other things, then it's going to be left in a state of abandonment. And as long as it's left in a state of abandonment, it can be dictated and controlled by these fraudulent corporate constructs called fake governments or countries right now. So that's what's happening.
Yeah. I also want to encourage everyone to believe that. I encourage you to believe that it is important to know sometimes when you see news from the Vatican, whether it's false, truth, or false, because we need to know the lies as well. I don't think that we should just pay attention to only the truth, right? When we say, oh, this is just another social construct being created in front of our eyes, or another indoctrination. But you need to know where
You're
they're
kind of
coming
breaking up a
from.
little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I was just saying that it's important that we don't dismiss, because people think that just the Vatican, what the Vatican does is not my business because I'm not Catholic. And I think that's where I'm at with that. Yeah. And I wish everyone knew how powerful these people really, and I say these people, I mean the Vatican, they actually do control a lot of the decisions that are being made. And so I didn't realize this. I was one of those people that said, I'm not even an active Catholic. That's none of my business. But sure enough, I think we need to pay attention to these decisions. This is why it is important to hear, whether it's, I don't know if they really are forgiving. I don't know what they're planning to do, but we definitely need to be aligned and know that somehow we have to do the work. We have to do the research. We have to pay attention to what's really happening around us. I say this with my heart in my hand. I really do. Give me 1 second. Okay,
Well,
baby, you want to take this up somewhere? Yes.
Well, as far as that, the misinformation campaigns, the different things like that, many people are becoming aware of the deception of what we call mainstream media, by realizing that they're all owned and controlled by, Vanguard, BlackRock, different entities, and which all have ties to the same, oligarch that we're talking about, right? That controls, things from behind the scenes. So a lot of people are breaking that spell, and a lot of people are taking the position of being the sharers of the information, and fighting against this notion that if it doesn't come from these particular sources that have been approved and 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 authorized by these particular sources, because that's the conditioning that was going on for generations. We were basically told that if it didn't come from this source, if they didn't approve it, and this creates a paradigm in the minds of the people to where they use this to gauge whether or not it's true, whether or not they did any research on it or checked into it or weighed it up in their own mind, whether it made sense or not. It's automatically rejected, automatically discarded because it didn't come from these particular sources. And we don't understand what level of mind control and manipulation that in and of itself is. And so a lot of people are coming to the awareness that that has been the game that's been played on the minds of the people for so long. They're kind of breaking that spell. And then people are taking things more and more into account of looking into stuff for themselves, weighing it up, realizing that, wow, I have a whole computer system in my hand that I can access any information in the world in a split second just by deciding to, right? So I really don't have many excuses left as far as not knowing things. So anything you don't know, learn. Anything you're not capable of doing, figure it out. Learn how to, remove any of the limitations. And just with that alone, that makes the possibility of the people becoming empowered by a different source other than that dependent, privileged nature, is threatening to the system that be. So now we have to be mindful that these are very crafty individuals that will make things seem a certain way and make it seem like you're becoming aware of something, all while that was what they wanted you to become aware of. And I give an example of that, sort of like the civil rights movement, right? Where we understand civics, we understand civility, yet when we talk about things like the civil rights movement and a bill been written into place that makes you think that someone else was able to sign something, and that's what gave you civil rights, right? So the whole time, that's actually what they wanted you to have. But in order to really make it stick for you to get it, we got to show resistance. We got to make you fight for it. We got to sick dogs on you, hose you, do all these abusive things, right? To make you fight more and more for it. When the whole time is exactly what I really want you to have, because the moment you accept that, you agree to that, now you've signed on to the ideology that everything that you deserve actually must come from me. And so this is a mindset that gets indoctrinated on the people. So you end up begging the government for everything. You end up, being in a state of dependency because you don't realize that, wow, I could have just did all of these things self-sufficiently on my own and established myself. But it's the mindset. I call it the candy dish syndrome, where if you really want the children to eat everything in the candy dish, right? You don't tell them that, here, you can have all the candy, you won't eat as much as you like. Because if you do that, they may eat a few pieces and then lose interest. But if you tell them that they cannot have it, you play this psychological game and you keep it resistant, then they're going to always be figuring out, always trying to have it. The whole time, all you wanted them to do was to eat the candy so their teeth could rot out, that they could get sick and they could become, it's a cycle, right? So it's just a problem, reaction, solution type of mind game and art of war. So you create the problem, you gauge, monitor the reaction, and then you provide the solution to the problem that you created. And so that's kind of the structure that we're set up in. So we always have to be mindful of the information, the misinformation, or even moves like that, because there's always an extra agenda. And then when you talk about the art of war, people plan 10 to 15 years in advance of where the people may be allowed to be sanctioned and functioning within. So we have to take those things into context as well, which is why a quick, simplified diffusion of all of these things we talk about, I try to condense it all into a power is the people perspective, wholeness and balance. That allows you to look into everything, collective enlightenment, because we do absolutely need each other. And so it's so many
Kiwi
different
Hazy,
things.
how you doing? How you doing? Cole, how you doing? My bad, y'all.
A vast majority or multitude of things that are
Cooking and listening to my teacher.
widespread and varied. So
Thank you for that. I wanted to ask another question to you, Doc, because when I'm kind of like wrestling with something, I either just stay quiet and research, but I want to ask you here. So we know that Unum Sanctum, the whole purpose of it was to control the planet, right? To control the world. And I see the importance of understanding why we have to continue doing our own, like pretty much reclaiming the reins of our own mind. When we say that, we mean you have to be able to sit in a place where you understand this, because this is not an attack on the church itself. This is more like understanding why we're not governing ourselves, because we are the government. Yet it's just like you said, the candy dish thing.
Government.
We have to go
It's a
through
paradigm for governing your mentality. That's what your government does. It does. It governs your mentality.
all these things that was put in place to pretty much control us, right? How do we explain this to, like, my niece? Okay, my niece was asking me questions, and I try to do the best I can, because I told my niece the same thing. Baby, I am learning, I understand. And she's 18 years old, so she's in an age where she really could receive this information. And she asked me an important question. She said, Titi, why do we allow it? It was a simple question, right? Why do we allow it?
From the mouth of youth comes powerful statements. Okay.
Right?
All
She
right.
said, why do we allow it?
Well, the thing is, what she may not, or many may not be willing to take into context, we have to realize that because we have sit dormant for so long, and each moment that we sit dormant, we allow the adversarial energy to get stronger and stronger and more adept in its dealings, right? So we got to be honest about that first, because we have sat back in a dormant state, in a dependent state for multiple years, being spun around in certain cycles of not really having any clue of what was really what. We all went through the Rockefeller, Carnegie finance educational system and all of its tenets and arms, whether it be in all of the everything educational, right? We all went through those, and we went through that and under the premise that if I get this is going to help me reposition or better my position in getting this, even though once I get this, I didn't know that it was a game as well. So it's real life monopoly, right? So because we've sat back dormant for so long, they are in positions to do things threatening, right? They are in position to do things harmful. They do it every day. We see it. We talk about it in the food and the water and everything that we consume. It comes from the same source of those who may not even. Most of the participants are not willing participants in the sense that they've made a decision to participate in something nefarious. They're in most cases only acting according to what they were trained, what they were taught, what they were programmed, right? So they're not acting as nefarious beings. They're acting like most people say, I'm just doing my job, right? And that's the extent that people think into it, not knowing that there are so many different layers as to why these things were set up this particular way, and everybody is playing a certain role along the way. So the way the system is set up is that it's people, because the opposition always comes in the form of other people. And so in that, the society, the social construct has ended up to where the people are the biggest threat to people, right? Everybody feels threatened every day. Everybody feels insecure every day, not threatened by wildlife, not threatened by, catastrophe. The biggest threat that people feel every day is from other people. So in that sense, the people have been weaponized against themselves. So because of that, that creates a dynamic to where if you were to just abolish this system and take all of the mechanisms of authority and control out of play with the present condition that the mindset of the people are in, it will be absolute chaotic. It will be absolute self-destructive, because the people are not centered in functional founded principles that will transcend any of their differences, any of their varying perspectives, any of their varying belief systems. In fact, most people would utilize their present ideology, mindset, or belief system to oppose anyone that has anything different than that. And that is the perfect diagram or the perfect biography of an agenda that you would actually want, because now it's on autopilot. You don't have to worry about the people having to manipulate the people, because the people are already programmed, conditioned, and trained to cling to their particular piece, thinking that their piece is the right piece, the only piece, the best piece, and any other piece is damn condemned, going to hell, and must be attacked, and is the opposition. And if every piece is thinking that, then you have a easy social construct that is self-destructive and is thereby automatically put in positions of control. And so many of us may deny that, but anything that we're geared toward, we kind of feel that way. Like, you can see it on every level from from minuscule childlike levels to street levels to government levels to business levels to, these are the programs that have been implemented. So it is not a just end it all tomorrow type of scenario because of that. Because if you just end the government of an entire social construct that is under the dictates and control of a government function, then that is going to definitely create a destructive chaos. So you have to encourage the principled nature of those that want to be principled and high upstanding, right? To put them in those positions of government to help to remind the people that the people are the government. The government does not derive its power in and of it from itself. It derives its power from the people. So the people have to be empowered and realize that they are the source of it all. But it is a process. It's not a process that has to take very long, but it is a process that has to incur or include the changing of the mind, right? Like your niece was asking you, why do we comply? Why do we, the reason why you comply is because that's what your programming, your conditioning, your mindset has instructed you, and your body must follow the mind, has instructed you that that's what to do, because it is based on fear-based construct. Because if I do not do this, there are consequences. There are things that I do not want to happen. I have loved ones. I want to, all of these things factor up and mean something, but we have to be honest and face them. This is why neurology is so important, because we have to get to a place of being honest with ourselves and realizing that, wow, most of my thoughts really ain't my thoughts. I picked up on these thoughts from when I lived in the hood over here, or when I lived in the mountains over here, or when they were a result of the environmental influences and things like that. So that's how I established these thoughts. So the more and more we begin to use neurology and see that, the more inspired and motivated we become in creating our own reality, realizing that we don't want the trajectory of the reality that we have to continue down this path. We must play a role in adjusting that. And so until we develop that willingness, right? And then in some areas, how can we connect the dots instead of me fighting with my particular piece? How can I agree to agree? How can I find a correlation with the other piece instead of putting all of my energy into things that I know we disagree about, the things that I know we disconnect about? So everybody's putting all of their energy into the divisions, into the variations. And we all know that to divide is to conquer. And we're already conquered. We're already in a defeated state because we've accepted that reality. And so as far as reaching people, we have to find the level or the station that each unique being exists in. And no one level is more important than any other level. That's very important, because that takes away this hierarchical mindset of thinking that I'm better than you, and the only way I can make myself uplifted and feel better is if I put down on you. So that's the common social construct narrative. Everybody has to compete and beat down somebody else in order to make themselves feel good, or other people to look at them or view them as being successful because they were able to defeat someone else.
Such as race.
It sounds common.
That's why race is a competition, social construct. It doesn't exist.
Of that normality.
Only reason it exists is because we believe it.
Must adjust in that mindset. So reaching each unique being by listening to them, by seeing where they are, allowing them to ask questions from within themselves. And this is how you seek. As a sharer, you have to learn how to listen and repeat the same process. So you listen, you look, listen, and learn, right? So that you can share viable information, so that now that they can become that. So now you're doing is reciprocity. You're developing reciprocity. You don't want to talk to people that you can't relate with, right? And if you don't seek their level, you'll never create a relationship. So that's all we're doing. We're all relating to one another, things that I resonate with, to see what we are, and we're in the process of growing. One of the biggest things I hear out here, and I hear in life, is everybody speaks to, this is who I am, or this is the finality. I already know. You can't change me. I don't want to change. I'm this and this, right? And it sounds great, I guess. Yet when you really look at it, it's speaking to a finality as if it's over with. Yet if you're still breathing, if you're still here, there's still room to grow for us all to grow. And we have never done anything in and of ourselves. We like to think so. We like to think we're independent. We like to think we're individuals. But if you look at those words, one says that you're in a state of dependent. So you are dependent. The other one says you're in divide, you all. So it's just, and I know people may say, well, that's just a stretch. That's just some word salad. You may think, yet when we really dissect these things, a lot of these common narratives that we speak on actually contribute to the chaos and the consistent dividing of the whole, which ultimately is the most high source, by whatever name you prefer. And then people even argue about the name, not realizing that any name had to come after the actual essence or presence of source. So it's a product of, so it can't actually fully. So, but there are a lot of things. But
Thank
so
you for
there are
that,
ways to
Randy.
reach each and every individual. So
There is, and I'm
but let
learning
them
that
know that
as
they're
we.
not an individual.
Right, right, and I get that. I really do, because I'm a work in progress, and I see that. I'm gonna play this message. We do have a bubble here. Again, hello, Salty. Hello, Mr. Chris. You don't know Dharma Ghost. Nice to see you. Lost Cruise Lion and Mr. Bronx Blues. All right, let's go. Or BX Blues, I should say. I assumed it was Bronx because I'm from the Bronx. So when we see BX, we say Bronx, but I don't know if that's what it means. But Mr. BX Blues. All right, Dharma Ghost.
Good afternoon, Grand Rising, Mr. and Mrs. Bay. You guys are just it just a marvelous couple, and always love listening to you, seeing you here on Active and Stereo, bringing us the truth and stuff. Ask not what we can do to our country, but ask what your country may be doing to you. For sure. Just brilliant point. They're selling us the narrative, and you got to wonder why. Yeah, exactly that. Because then we fall under this belief that we need to get things from our country. We need to have our country disclose things. Like, no, man, disclose it for yourself, and tell your family that you love them.
Honest to you, brother Armor. Much love to you, brother. Definitely always an honor to see you in the space and to resonate with the information my life here and I try to share and represent. And we're all learning, we're all growing, and we're all doing it as a collective enlightenment. So that's what's up. Let's be love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And yes, love our families. I know we talked about this, but I didn't get some clear understanding. When I don't have clear understanding, I'm still full of doubt. Um, I wanted to know, because they're calling it the Pope Doctrine of Discovery of 2023. And I just want to know exactly I don't know if you remember what is it that he's really trying to say? Is it that when he say renounced the 550-year-old doctrine of discovery, you know, um, I still have trouble understanding what is he really doing. Is he just
Well, being in
apologizing for what had happened, or
it's like
an
a public
apology?
global apology, and being in the position of the Pope would be the only position that an apology like that would have any levels of validity, because
Right.
you know even though it may have been upheld by all previous popes or things like that. And then two, okay, what would be the benefit of that? Okay, knowing that those with a nefarious agenda have not ended that agenda. So why would you try to do that? Well, one reason is if you know that the people are waking up and you know that they're becoming aware of a lot of things, what do you want to do? You want to provide a pacifier. You want to provide something that to wing the people a little bit back your way, or not to be so against you. Be like, oh, well, they finally, I mean, just start beginning to look at it from that angle too. When you understand any of the Shang Tsu's arts of war or tactics of war or types of things, and is there a war? Is there a spiritual war going on? Is there something going on that makes people want to realize that there is,
What's
you
going
know,
on, Randy G? You just listening to my teacher, Dr. Bill, Miss Isabella.
when the people are waking up. So what do I do? Do I want to capture the minds of the people and ensnare them and make sure that they stay in this and I control the narrative, or just freely let them wake up and become fully aware of all these things? And, so there are a lot of things to be taken into consideration is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it repudiates the concepts, right? It just kind of like it recognizes that it wasn't the right thing to do. That's what they're trying to kind of like admit, that it was the wrong thing. But yeah, doesn't really give a solution. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Whew, that was a lot. I'm opening up the floor. Anyone has any questions, anything to add, you're free to do so. Um, I just I'm telling you guys, this trip to the Vatican was very heavy. It was very heavy. And I'm glad I went. I don't regret going at all, even though it was a little bit hard to swallow. But it's part of morology. I had a self-reflection. I was able to see things with my own mind, right? Removing all the indoctrination that was put in me, right? And all the social constructs and all the things that we go through when we children and however we manage to live our lives. And I'm able to be a lot more open to continuing researching and understanding my position and how important it is, as a police officer, as a woman, right? And as someone who's just trying to be part of the solution, right? Because we do have to start, not just declaring
That's
our
my question,
nationality,
y'all.
but proclaiming it. And I know there's a difference. I declare with my mouth, I say it in wide open, but I also need to stand on it and stand on law. So I encourage everyone to do this.
Doc Bay, what would be your solution to bringing everybody to at least the table to have a agree on a collective solution? It seems to be rather hard to get people to uh, see our the way we to see how we fit together, other than the differences. Would it be by repetition, or is there any other solutions that you may have to help us become more solution based in this society?
Starting gate that puts you on the starting line. Everything preceding that, you're not even at the starting line, you know, because, and the reason that would help us to see that is most of the time we talk about international law, international events, or, which is basically the relationship between multiple nations from around the world. And nationality speaks to a nation or being tied and connected to a geographical land mass. The moment you even speak the word nationality, it instantaneously should make you connect you back to land, and resources and culture, and things like that. And so there are nearly 300 different nationalities around the world, what I refer to as sub-nationalities, right? That speaks to what was done in the early 1920s that created a universal type of nationality. And that is where a lot of people may be misconstruing what is really going on with the nationality conversations that we have. But the importance of nationality is that it levels the playing field, puts you at a self-determining status or station to where you could co-create the reality you actually prefer. But anything preceding that makes you under what's called a 3/5 or secondary or second class or incapable of determining your own life affairs status. And you have that status on the record, legally,
Mm-hmm.
yet not
Yeah,
lawfully so. That's what that's really about.
absolutely. Well, we have one message here. Let's go. I'm going to play that while we continue. Chris, because you don't know.
Doc Bay, what would be your solution to bringing everybody to at least the table to have agree on a collective solution? It seems to be rather hard to get people to see our the way to see how we fit together, other than the differences. Would it be by repetition, or is there any other solutions that you may have to help us become more solution based in this society?
Well, my direct encouragement to that would be, let's agree to agree, right? We already know the popularity of let's agree to disagree, right? And most people think that the spirit of that is to say that we know we have disagreements, right? So let's agree that we have disagreements, but let's continue on. Let's still try to make something happen, right? And that sounds and seems as if it's very vulnerable. But if we really think about what programming, what psychology we're putting on our mind, we're saying, let's agree to disagree, right? So we're agreeing to the disagreements, right? So if we say, let's agree to agree, and the only thing we're going to talk about during this conversation, during this bill, during this podcast, is nothing that we disagree about. We're only going to talk about the things that we agree about, or things that we're in agreement of, right? So what are some of those things? Let's begin to make a list of those things that we agree about, the things that we would all want to see, that would transcend any of the divisions, any of the things. It's sort of like everybody on the planet needs sunlight and water, right? Then let's talk about the importance of sunlight and water. And that's just a hypothetical example of something that would transcend no matter who you are, what you look like, where you come from, what are those things, what are those dots that we can connect that are universal to us all, that are wholeness to us all. And let that be what we put our energy into when having conversations, having bills, having shares. Let's make that the norm. And 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 32, 64, so on and so on. So wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. So create a premise, create platforms that this is what the attention is on. Let's agree to agree. And all attention that's paid to it is energizing or fueling it the same way we pay attention to all of the things that are adverse or controversial, and dramacidal. We put a lot of energy into that because our attention is on that. And so we're not energizing. So it amplifies and it always grows. So let's not try to reinvent that wheel of life. Let's just make sure that we provide a process to where the energy and the attention that's paid to it will fuel it as well. So I trust that creates some type of clarity to the one aspect or one suggestion that I would have as far as that.
Absolutely. Well, I the obelix, right? That was in the center. I guess I'm one of those people. I want to know, like, okay, I hear you. You took it from Egypt, you put it in the center. I wanted to know, why would you do that? You know what I mean? Like, what was the whole point of that? And no one. Let me just tell you. And I said that I was even upset at the fact that I was under the impression that I can go to any bookstore in the Vatican. They had so many different ones, right? In the square, Basilica, all over. They had these bookstores. So I thought I was going to be able to go in there and say, you know what? Do you have a copy of the Unum Sanctum of 1302? Like a copy of it, just like a paper bull or something. And no one seemed to know what that was about. No one knew what I was talking about. There was one particular store that the 2 individuals that were at the desk, when I did ask him, he just kind of was like, you Unum Sanctum? And I say, yes. Do you have a copy? Do you sell a copy of it? Like, do you have like a little copy of that? And he looked at me kind of strange. He did look at me strange and went back to the other individual, and they were talking, and in Italian. I could pick up some words because it's very similar to Spanish, and I speak Portuguese, so there was a lot of words that seemed so similar. But I did hear this: why would she be asking for that? That's what I heard. But okay, and I said, you know, he went into, I'm not going to mimic the Italians, but that was what I understood. And then they looked at me and they were like, no, we do not have a copy of that. And I said, do you know where I can find? I don't know. And he just brushed me off. He brushed me off like I was bothering him or something.
You know, I often try to simplify things and to speak to that why. So if you understand the history of the Egyptian empires and dynasties, and the Greek empires and dynasties, the Roman, you know, all of these different things, right? And so you have all of these chaoses of calamity, and Rome initiating this codified code of rule over men everywhere, ROME, right? And so what is one notion, to simplify it? Like if you're in a battle with someone and you conquer them and you defeat them, what do you take? You take trinkets or remnants of that conquering to show the world that we conquered the great empires of this, or we did this. So that adds credence to you. So it's sort of like bone collecting, or sort of like when people would be at war and they would clip off the ears of people and hang them on necklaces, and or it's all type. Just think of it from that perspective, to get closer to understanding the why, and then utilizing those documents to crucify or annihilate anyone that goes against your new doctrine and your new statuses. And so it's all mockery, and it's all signs of conquering and defeat. And so it's like, and then it plays a psychological role, and it creates the inquisitiveness, and then everything from all the symbology, and everything is symbolic from the moment you step on the ground and go into any of the areas, and what is the stories that are being told. So they're basically telling you historical events in anagram form or anamorphic form, utilizing animal natures. And that was the thing with the Egyptian pantheon, and the Egypt or Giza plateau area that is known today is the secondary one. The original one was here in this land, and that's something that many people don't have conversations about, and how many of those things were transported from here to there first before they was transported from there, and how thousands and thousands of years ago, Egypt came into prominence that in that area from going around the world, taking bits and pieces from different cultures and establishing and creating a empire type culture. And so there are a lot of things to be tapped into, but to keep it in a simplified modern day version, this is why I often encourage people to go from right now and then maybe go back, instead of trying to go as far back as you can and then find your way here, because that opens up the avenue for the telephone game, or a lot of the confusion, or who authorized this book, who told this version, who did this, and all those things, when we could actually deal with things that we actually have hands-on observation of, relevance of, and try to fix it in the now, and then allow that to filter and like kind of wave out and echo into fixing all of the misnomer things that we call history or history or his stories. So,
I could see that. I mean, I know that they used it. The Egyptians used that. The purpose of that, they had them all over Egypt, is to commemorating the dead and representing their kings and honoring their gods. So I could see the mockery by putting that in the center and then killing the Christians on there. So yeah.
And see, also you have to realize that obelisks were sundials as well, and the importance of the credence that was given to the sun. In fact, the Kemetic deities were called sun gods, and most people are worshiping sun gods today. You either have moon gods or sun gods. Most cultures around the world, whatever their religious aspiration is, you could trace it and root it back to what was called sun deity or moon deity or celestial deity and things like that. So as a sundial, and as the sun traverses and it casts a shadow or it casts light, depending on the movement. So it's all type of things, because most of the things that we consider to be religious are actually cosmological or have to do with the stars, which is why most religious texts all have similar stories that parallel, because they're all derived from the the great book that is above all of our heads, and it's called the stars of the heavens, like it speaks of in Genesis 1:14. So it's just so many different things and so many ways to connect the dots. But so
Well, another thing that kind of shocked me as well, you know, we often talk about how we try to collaborate instead of compete, right? I try to stay in that collaborative spirit. What another eye opener for me when it comes to that, again, I was prepped. You know, we've had all these discussions on competition, collaboration. So then I walk into the Coliseum. Man, yeah. The largest ancient amphitheatro that was ever built. How about that? It's the largest standing in the world. It's the largest standing amphitheater, right, in the world. And when I went in there, again, it's very, when they explained how that's where they did all the fighting, because, you know, they call about the warriors, gladiators, but they really were kind of slaves, you know, and they were put to fight. And it was just,
that was the criminal punishment and the different things depending on what you was up against, whether you was put in that maze, whether you was put it out in the outward arena. But it was all about
yes,
instilling in the masses of the people a love for conflict, chaos, and it being orchestrated as justice, or this is how justice is distributed. So we have those same scenarios carried on today in the form of sports arenas, you know, all these different entertainment fields and areas. And we don't know that those contributions all stem from that for the purpose of keeping the people divided, argumentative, picking their team, picking the lesser of two evils, false choice scenarios. All of these things line up and add up to be the same thing that we have today. So we have to fix it in the now. And it starts with
right.
self. It starts with each and every one of us within you.
I mean, yeah, that Coliseum, it holds it, back then. I'm sure I know that it was able to hold at least 50,000 to 80,000 spectators. Okay, and what they would see, sometimes they even said even 65,000. And they say it was used for gladiator stuff, right? But they also contest, what they called the contest. But when they started speaking, the tour guy, it included animal hunts, executions, and that is why we have these things called the Coliseum in all these different parts of the world where we go to see entertainers. So it was built on, what we did was we copy pasted such a barbaric act. We copy paste this, and this is where we have all these concerts. I mean, I didn't see it before. When we talk about arena, you know, arena, we did the etymology a while back. It means arena, it means sand, right? In Spanish. You know why the sand was there? It was to hold all the blood that was there from all the blood. And so now we boast about, I went to the Coliseum, like Madison Square Gardens, things like that, like huge, you know, arena seats. When we talk about stuff like that, I see things differently now coming back from Europe. I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from. Like where they were showing me where the lions would come from. Like they were I was literally right there in the ruins where they were showing me from the front floor and all the different things they would come in. And they even had a place where they would advertise. They had advertisement similar to what we do in the arenas that we go to watch football games, concerts, where they have like the Pepsi commercials and all these different things. Well, back then they did the same thing. Where do you think we get this from?
See, what is meant by all roads lead to Rome? It's not that every road, every path of the physical nature, but metaphorically, Rome is still controlling the narrative, and everybody is under the dictates of the Roman narrative, which is that unum sanctum tenets and dictates, and everything about every arena, all of it. And then when you get into the symbology of all these games, sort of like the word magic, you understand that we're all being played and coerced to apply our energy to these small little factions that all contribute to the big goal. and that's to keep the world in full, outright, entertaining competition and drama, to stay distracted from ever tapping into their real power that lies within, of co-creating and manifesting a reality that could actually benefit us all. So to keep us divided, we have multiple things at all times to keep sucking up our energy in the form of entertaining something, entering and taming your mentality, and provide keeping you in states of competition. And the only true competition is with your equal, and your only equal is yourself. So it's all fraud, it's all fraudulent, and it's all part of the same agenda.
Hmm. Well, it's a bunch of stuff that's been thrown down. It just looks like exactly what it is, ruins. But you could definitely get the sense of it when you sit in the center and you just go through it all. You could definitely get that vibe. There's a vibe in there. You know, when you walk in, it's like, ooh, you can feel it. You're one of those people that I'm one of those that I walk into places and I could actually, I don't psych myself, but I do. I knew that there was, you know, I even asked, because I said, is that where the animals came through? And he said, absolutely. And he was like, how did you know? And I said, I don't know. I just sensed it. Do you know, like they had these gates where they would release the animals, like tigers and stuff like that, or whatever, under there. And that's where they would, unfortunately, many were killed. So, yeah, that's what the Colosseum is about. That's why we have so many everywhere, I guess. All right, we got 2 messages. Hello, everyone. Chris Costrudo, no?
The problem I seem to have is that, especially within this social construct of black and white, is that the what we call the system, and I don't think people understand the system is running perfectly. I mean, they tell us that we have problems. We have the problems, they don't, because the system is designed to run exactly the way that it's running. How can we, us that the system, how can some that the system not working for get the ones that the system seems to be working for, understand, get them to understand that they're being used? Or is that just time? Or do they have to go through it? You know. I hope I'm making my question clear, Doc Bay. Honest to you more.
Honest to you, brother. Yeah, I definitely am assessing and getting, you know, your expression of the difficulties and getting people to the point. And I guess I definitely want to say that it's not a one trick pony, so to speak. There's no one thing that will work for the masses, because the masses are exactly that. There are a mass of multiple different, you know, ideologies and perspective, which is why an idea like collective enlightenment and agreeing to agree actually plays a relevant role, because you're saying that, again, you're saying, I know we have a different belief. I know we were brought up differently. We got different upbringings. My my perceptions are based off of external perspectives and ideologies and mindsets, and all of these things come. So this is why I always talk about wholeness and balance, because it includes it all, no matter where you are, where you come from, whether you're for the good, the bad, the ugly, the right, the wrong, the whatever, you're still part of the whole, right? And starting with that premise, that's a universal premise and concept that at least creates a stigma to say, all right, I understand that you're different, you see things differently, but I'm not gonna take that as mean that you oppose me, because what I really want is for the upliftment and the betterment of people. I want people to understand love. I want people to love themselves so that they can love others, right? So that's one of the things that we agree upon. Okay, let's stay in that premise. Let's work on it. Even as we wrestle through our disagreements, let's stay and remember that premise. And in doing so, we may be able to find the solution. But if we don't do that, we definitely will not find a solution, because there is no solution in that type of energy exchange and things like that. It's only more of the status quo, the chaos and the drama. And that's what people love. That's what people are addicted to. That's what's easier to do. And we've already been conditioned to take the easier route, to take the more comfortable route. That's how they're basically selling all of these things called technology, which is you being sold to you. So, but it provides this illusion of comfort, this illusion of of having to do less or having to function in an easier manner. So it's easy to sell. So what is happening is our mind is selling right along the seas with it. It's selling right off into the to the to the deep blue seas of commerce, and not understanding that we're all just products of this game, and we're pieces on the chessboard. So to correct that, we stay in the spirit of truth and trying to disseminate the things that we know we agree about. Coming up with that list will be the challenge, because once you come up with that list, now you have a premise that less and less people will be able to dispute because they contributed to that list. Okay, these are some of the things we agree about. I don't want to hear about what we disagree about. We know that we've been living that. We talk about it all the time. We got thousands of panels just on this app of all of the disagreements, and just like the one you spoke of. Okay, we hear that. So what are some terminologies or some ideologies we agree upon that we would all want to see for ourselves and others? And let's put energy into that for a while. Let's try 6 months of that and see what the results will be.
Absolutely. We have 3 more messages, my love. Let's go. Movie fan guy.
Hey,
What's up,
hey,
Bree? I see you.
hey, Dr. Poetry and Doc Bay. Thank you for sending me the invite to the show, Dr. Poetry. And love jumping in, I gotta tell you, I went to church recently, went to my first confessional, and Quagmire was just fine and groovy. And then the father he was talking to, confessing all his sins to,
Oh my
when
goodness.
he told him
What did I
about
do?
this house that he went to, because he thought it was his
Did I
baby
send
mama's
this to you?
house, and got confused and ended up
My
seeing
God.
these multiple sexy ladies there, and they called themselves the sisters. Yeah, and he had a wild night with them. But as he was telling this to the father, then he said, "Wait a minute, that sounds like my house, my son. You were in my house. Those are my wives." And I was like, oh, look at that Hooters down the street having happy hour. Bye.
That's movie fan guy. I did send it to you. Jesus Christ. All right, movie fan guy. I got you. Dharma Ghost.
Hey, guys. Again, really loving the conversation here. I'm gonna say this, and like you said, Dr. Bay, uh, where our attention goes, energy flows. Uh, we literally are gods and goddesses. We are creating our own realities. Each individual has their own version of the planet, of this planet we're on. So be the change that you want to see. You know, um, look for the beauty and the love, you'll see it. Look for the chaos and the discordance, you'll see it. I mean, what do you want to see? You know, we can do whatever we can do and have whatever we want, as long as it doesn't harm anybody or harm yourself. You create it.
He has
Absolutely.
another one. Yeah, he does have another one. Well said.
And I'll follow up what I just said by sharing this. I want to understand what an experience I had when I was about 3 or 4 years old. I never understood it for most of my life. In the past 2 years, I've had a lot of realizations on it, and it's crazy, but it's what I wanted, though, too. That's where my intention was, to try to solve this mystery. And now, like, the government's talking about, disclosing, UFOs, AAPs. I know this sounds crazy to you guys, but, like, I'm just saying, we create our realities. So if you want to see unity and visualize world peace.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I
The power of
agree.
the mind, the power of consciousness. I mean, this actually is a conscious reality. This is consciousness. That unseen, undefinable aspect is pure consciousness. And we have our own unique levels of consciousness that are all connected to the supreme consciousness. So everything we see is a manifestation of that vibration, frequency, and sound, which is thought. And so, and
Yeah.
and what the message is that if you want to see, this was a very important thing to pull out of that. Like, if you want to see a beautiful world, then that's what you generate. You be that change, and that's what you look for, because you will attract what you look for. Now, if you're not really diving into the mirology and really analyzing who you are, where you are, and why you're always in conflicting situations, it may be because that's what you're looking for. That's what you're generating, because you're trying to challenge that, or you're trying to do that. So that's what you'll find more of. It is whatever you say it is. It is whatever you request. So you are gods and goddesses that have to take that level of responsibility so that you can create the ability to truly respond in a manner that is conducive to co-creating a reality you prefer. So absolutely, brother and family.
I got Los Cruz.
Hey, que lo que! Shout out to the Empress and Emperor Doc Bay. You know what I mean? And Dr. Poetry, aka Chuleta. What's going on? What's going on? Shout out to Chris Cuss Hood, Dharma Ghost, and Bree Talks, the other goddess and goddesses, God and goddesses, gods and goddess in the room. You know what I mean? I've been listening. I've been quietly listening. Loving the talk, loving the content. You know what I mean? Keep it coming, man. You know me, always taking it in like a sponge and writing things down, important things down. You know what I mean? So, yeah, keep it coming. You know what I mean? You already know. Honest to you, my brother.
Right.
Que lo que.
What's up, Los Cruz? What's going on, everyone? Welcome, Mr. Derek. I see you. Welcome. So, my
Derek
love,
LBC me rise. That's
Oh.
my brother, Derek LBC me rise.
Hello. Nice to meet you, Mr. Derek. I think someone left another. Mr. Derek left a note. Okay, let's go.
Two docs in the house. Dr. Poetry, Dr. Bay, how you doing? It's Derek LBC. These nuts. Shout out to the room. Free talks. Salty Coffee and everybody else in the room. How you guys doing? Just in for a minute. Just got through with the moving with purpose. So I'm checking you out, Doc. Let's go.
What's
Hey,
going on with
nice
your brother,
to meet
Derek?
you.
It's been a while, brother. Definitely great to hear you. Definitely great to know you're still out here striving. You know what I mean? And Derek, that was Tripp's partner in. What can I call it, Derek? Should I call it crime, or should I ain't gonna call it crime? But they definitely used to have a nice panel. You know, Derek definitely came through as part of UPC as well as part of A&E. And
Oh, okay.
the brother is, you know, he's out there in Cali too. He's out there near Trips and Bree and all the other families. So
So what's up to him? Hello. Nice to meet you. Well, I think we're pretty much. Do you have anything else to add? I think we're pretty good with this for today. If you want to continue, it's up to you.
now I'm definitely in a good space, you know, to close out and, you know, encourage the family to definitely be willing to adjust and embrace change. Change is not the enemy. We've always been taught that, you know, to resist change and to think that changing means that you're changing who you are. Yet the unfoldment of who you are is an ever growing thing. We're always discovering, which is uncovering or tapping into more and more layers of who we are. And if we speak a level of finality as if it's already over with, we're already there, that could definitely teeter totter around arrogance and egocentric misconceptions that you're applying to yourself. So you're limiting yourself by putting a certain definition on yourself, because once you define something, you also confine it within the brackets of that definition. So our life, our existence is of an infinite nature. So we definitely are not to be defined in that way. So let's always be willing to continuously expand our awareness, always be willing to grow, which is be the change that we want to see. So let grow. And honest to y'all, and definitely appreciate y'all in this space.
Absolutely. I don't know. We're gonna close with the intro, or we just okay. All right. Well, I love you guys. It was great seeing everyone, and I'm glad that everyone came through. Those who listened to the playback, I hope you enjoy. Um, my thoughts on my experience at the Vatican and how I had to do some self-reflection and some neurology. And we're all growing. And I say that because it's the truth. I'm going to be always changing. Yesterday I was different. Today's another day. And as long as I continue to stand on love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, I know we're going to be all right. I know I'm going to be all right. And I love y'all. Power up. All right? Power up.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like it.
We have a
And
message.
all right.
Okay. We got Mr. Ghost.
Thank you very much for your talk today. I missed the first part of it, but I'll listen to the replay because I was thinking about the word disseminate, and I was looking at that. Disseminate comes from disseminatus or something, and basically it's to sow your seed. Is what disseminate is, sowing your seed, distributing technically your semen, but these ideas and thoughts, if you have if you're passionate about unity and in getting over all the BS and deprogramming and all that, talk about it, have these conversations with each other, that's dissemination.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. I would like to see everybody have a agree to agree panel. I want everybody to utilize those phrases. Let's agree to agree. And everybody make let's agree to agree panels. And let's just see if we could feel the dynamic. And it may make several people uncomfortable because they're not used to that, but that's all right. They'll never be used to it if we don't stand firm on establishing it. That's part of co-creating a reality that we prefer. So let's agree to agree. Let's talk about the things we agree about. Let's make a difference. Let's be the change. So
that's right.
That's
the best way. That's the best way. All right, my love. We're out of here.
Love you.
Smoke bomb. Love you.
Hermosa.
Power up. Mimoto. All right. Power up. Smoke bomb.
Making a month, they owe that shit back. Talk about being sick as hell. How you owe for doing some shit that you do every damn day? You was already making your money. Why would you invest in some bullshit? Read the fine print, people. Yeah. Just because you invest in your money don't mean you're gonna get good money back.
Yeah, and they should
shit. Look at crackheads. Look at the crackheads. Goddamn it, shit. Crackheads invest $50 on crack rock. They invest $50 on crack rock, and they lose it all. Oh, God damn it! That was a stupid transaction, but you got half of the moment. Don't do it. They did. Drugs are bad. Oh shit! I am retarded, but that's how. Hey, bro, all bullshit aside, that is teaching 101. If you can't learn from that, I don't know what to tell you. I need me. I gotta find my charger. Oh Lord! Oh Lord! Oh shit! I let my son get his charger's Oculus. Ain't that about a bitch? Now it's biting me in the ass. I need my charger. I gotta rob my son to this Oculus charger. Damn, no, I'm gonna let him charge up his little thing. But my phone is dying, but it ain't gonna kill me right now. So I still got about another hour. Indeed. He's on 14%, so I got like an hour. Indeed. See, this is why we get kicked off the stereo streets. We can't have a show over 6 hours now. Or is it 8?
16.
Like how long?
I think 16 hours. Once those 16 hours is up, then they get us out of here until the next day.
Oh shit! See, that be your problem, bro. You be on here. See, look, man. I think one time, I took over your show Oh shit. Let me get back. Let me get back. Where's my phone? Where did I put it? Okay. Yeah, we on 13%. We gonna be alright. We gonna be alright. No, it's on 15%. Shit. Hell, I got a whole 2 hours left. Shit. I punch you in your face.
Giggity. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just doing humanly thing, a human thing. You know, the restroom is necessary, but I stopped restroom now. But yes, that's me. I be doing 16 hours, and yes, you did took over control because it was getting chaotic at the time. What's his name? Cole? No, not Cole. I forgot his name.
Which one?
Dang, you you was going at that guy because he was emotional and he was talking about y'all being mean, oh y'all being mean
Oh,
and
fuck.
this and that.
It's a couple folks that we came at like that.
Indeed.
Oh, you talking about? Oh shit! I remember. I remember. I remember. That was I want to say Prodigy.
Prodigy, I think so. Prodigy, wait, Prodigy.
It was either him or that dude with the pink hair.
Yeah, it's a pink. Yeah, like
Yeah, the pink hair. Yeah, yeah. I ain't gonna talk about him, bro. That was Dennis Rodman's little brother. That nigga was. Let me stop. Let me stop. I said I was gonna be good on Noble.
Oh yeah, of course. You're awesome, dude. And I remember you. I don't know. I'm not gonna mention all these stuff. You know, that they got you. Well, not that didn't get you heated. The other thing that got you heated. Yeah, that's why I kind of keep away from that topic about stop the topic. Yeah, keep it. Don't worry, it's not bad. It's just celebrity stuff.
Who's it? Oh. Like, what the heck?
Oh,
from the way I'm looking at your phone, I thought you were taking a selfie, and I was wondering why you was looking like that, not knowing it was DJ Two Cars this whole time. Nothing, man. Nothing.
What you say?
A charger, but then you're charging the office on my charger.
Oh yeah, I can't. It was a little hot out there.
You said a little hot.
Oh. I was gonna go back out there, but he kept coming out here to see. I had to download. I had to take off Roblox in order for download. But he was on good and he wasn't Roblox. I don't know.
Well, I'm finna walk away from the music because I do not want to get the show banned on Stereo Streets for copyright infringement.
No, no, you're not gonna get banned for that. But you will get sued if the artist of the music decides to.
Look, hey, look, I'm not. Look now. It's the end of 2023. We only got a couple more months left. I don't need that bullshit.
No, that's a rules in the that's a rules.
Just our luck. That motherfucker get to listening to our podcast show on the Stereo Streets. Oh, you playing my music? Sue that nigga. Fuck that, bro. Motherfuckers desperate these days. And the way people set up, they ready to stick. He played your music. I know him. We friends. Get your stupid ass out here, boy.
It's literally, oh man, it's literally the dang. Well, how it goes? it's literally the rules of stereo. So they said that the artist could sue if they choose to, if it's their music. It's their choice. That's how crazy it is. I dare
Shit,
an
we
artist
have
sue me.
people listening to that shit. I see. That's why I don't even want to eat my macaroni sauce when the fuck it up.
It's not. Where's that go?
And the crazy thing about that happened to one of these YouTubers. The dude was playing a top rapper's music in his live. That's your fault. I told you it was dying.
No,
He walked on the hoverboard thinking he was gonna ride it. That mud turned off and he fell, smacked his face on the wall. Mm-hmm. I'm trying not to be childish and laugh. I need to be the concerned father. Oh, are you okay? Mm-mm. Don't make no sense.
that's for the tequila was fly, but I think
Sorry,
it's not that. So
never mind. I'm sorry.
Why is this macaroni smacking like this? This shit fine.
Because the texture. Yeah, that it'd be like that nowadays. Put extra cheese on it and stuff, and game over. But I understand.
I don't know